Alright guys, welcome back to another episode. Episode 19. Davison Figueroa versus Alex Perez in the main. And we've also got Valentina Shevchenko versus Jennifer Maia in the co-main. Two flyweight belts on the line. I'd just like to quickly recap. I didn't do an episode last week, but from 2 weeks ago, the Glover versus Santos card. That was another good card for me. Snatched another belt on verdict. We got four selections out of the five correct. Also, just one leg away from the multi. We needed Tanner Boser to edge that decision. Very close fight. He was far more gun shy than I thought he would be, though. Personally, very disappointed in how that played out, and that was my worst call of the night. My best call obviously was Glover by submission. We hit that at 12.07 times on verdict, which is a super solid play. And it wasn't without risk, and we did have to sweat, but the odds were on our side. We also cashed him in our single plays, which was good to see, trying to get that record back into the green. But yeah, jumping into the bottom of this card this week, it's a big betting card, so stay around till the back end to kind of get my scoop on that. But the first of six main card fights, we've got Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval. Moreno is 2.15 times on verdict, but the favourite of the bookies is $1.48, and Royval is 1.87 times on verdict and $2.59 at the bookies. This is a guaranteed banger right here, guys. Brandon Royval's for real. He's so entertaining, such high volume, such high pressure. He's only had two UFC fights to date, and both have ended up being fight of the night. Made even more impressive by the fact that both of those fights only went into the second round. He finished both in the second round, not the typical 3 round slugfest that gets that award. And for only a two-fight newbie in the company, this guy seems ready-made. He got Tim Elliott in his debut, like a really savvy, tough veteran to take on, and he beat him in the most impressive way possible, like a really ridiculously fast-paced, scrappy grappling match. And he actually subbed him with an arm triangle as well. Crazy for him to finish Tim in that way. Then he fought Kakara France, a fight in which he kind of got us to show. He showed us some durability. He did get dropped in that fight, but he rallied back. He knocked Kai down twice himself, before showing us some kind of slick ground maneuvers to threaten and eventually lock up a guillotine that Kai had to tap to. In terms of his skill set, he's really well rounded, extremely well credentialed BJJ black belt. Like I've mentioned before on my breakdowns, he actually trains classes at Factory X where he is based. He transitions between submission attempts extremely slickly, a really active guard, always looking to finish, whilst also managing to maintain positions and some pretty good top control. But then for such a solid BJJ guy, his stand-up's actually really impressive. He does get hit a bit, but that comes part and parcel with the rate and pace of his fights thus far. His skill set on the feet extremely versatile. He uses the kicks to great effect to all three target zones, being legs, body, and head. And he regularly uses the knee up the middle to either close distance or just make his opponent wary of considering a level change, which is going to be a critical strike to throw in this one against Moreno, who is a handy grappler himself. And Royval's got extremely good footwork, both moving forwards and backwards, in combination with fast hand and leg speed, which makes him a really dangerous guy on the feet, both going forwards and a counter striker going backwards. To quickly touch on Moreno now, his numbers are really, really solid. He is less volume than Royval, but his defense is definitely better, with his good head and foot movement on the edge of range. And, when he commits to his strikes, he does sit down on them, has the durability to remain in the pocket. He's actually never been finished. And another big thing about this fight and about Brandon Moreno is he has the UFC experience edge. This is going to be his 9th UFC fight. And of those 9 fights, his last 2 performances have definitely been his most impressive. And for a young guy, you love to see that, a pattern of evolution through their career, especially as the level of competition gets harder. To his ground game, he's also a really dangerous grappler. 10 of his 17 wins via submission. But in comparison of the two, I feel like he's slightly less aggressive on the canvas than Royval, and far less capable of keeping his opponent grounded in order to work for submissions. And then in terms of getting finishes against higher level competition, he's actually only managed 2 finishes in the UFC. Most recently of which was back in 2017 against Dustin Ortiz. So to my prediction, this is a tough fight to call. I think Moreno has the better boxing, probably carries a slight power edge, but Royval throws with much more versatility and is a high pressure fighter. In terms of speed, these guys are probably right about par with each other. It's the ground exchanges for mine where the difference is. I think Royval's better at controlling his opponent, and he's better at threatening with finishes. And I also think he's a little slipperier with his escapes and reversals, and just a little smoother on the ground. So I'm taking him. Like I already mentioned as well, Moreno's never been finished. And although I think the KO's live, considering how Royval goes about it on the feet, I'm just going to roll with the decision at 4.34 times here. I think that's a good play. I like the fact that Royval's a dog at the bookies, but a favourite on verdict. Moreno's probably a wiser verdict play. But his odds are only the 3 times kind of range for a decision win. So don't mind taking Brandon here via a decision. Next fight along, we've got Caitlin Chookagian versus Cynthia Calvillo. Chookagian's 2.46 times on verdict and represented the bookies $2.82. Calvillo's 1.68 times on verdict and $1.41 at the bookies. I am a little disappointed with the odds we're getting here on Calvillo. We cashed her as a slight underdog against Jessica Eye, and now, she's this big of a favourite against Chookagian, who has seen the top of this flyweight division. She's a worthy opponent and probably a bit of a live dog here. But with all that being said, I do really love Calvillo's game. If we're talking all aspects of MMA, she's a far better rounded fighter in this matchup. Caitlin has no ground game to speak of, really. From 11 UFC fights, she's only secured takedowns against one opponent, being Antonina Shevchenko. She scarcely threatens the shot. 95% of the time, she's only interested in the stand-up. And her takedown defense pretty woeful as well. To give her some credit there, she does look to work to her feet and not settle for bottom position. But ever since she started taking on this higher level, superior competition, her ability to get a stand-up has waned. Maya, Shevchenko, and Andrade, Shevchenko being of the Valentina variety, not Antonina. All 3 of those fighters have had success in managing to keep Caitlin grounded, and that's 3 of her last 4 fights, And Calvillo has a really strong top game. Crafty grappler, looks to control the wrists or sweep the legs against the cage, kind of take away the base of her opponent, take away what they're posting on when they're attempting to stand up. And then very, very dangerous with her jiu-jitsu. 3 UFC submissions from 8 fights with the company. She's very nice to watch on the ground. One of the X factors coming into this one would be the size. Would Calvillo be strong enough to implement her grappling game at 125 as she did at 115? But that was answered in her last fight, her first at 125 with the promotion, where she managed to take Jessica Eye down at will and keep her there. And, Eye's a big, strong flyweight. Chookagian does pose a different size challenge here. She's 5'9", 68-inch reach, and, she does look to fight at that length on the outside. She does manage distance well with jabs, teep kicks, which kind of speaks to her high defensive numbers as she floats on the outside of her opponent's range. But I really don't think it will matter against Calvillo because her stand-up has improved so much. She works all areas of the body, far more versatile in that respect than Caitlin, in my opinion. And, she manages to string combinations together as she comes forward extremely well. And she'll have to do that to close distance in this one, be on the front foot, be the pressure fighter, get Caitlin thinking about the hands and work to the body to set up the takedown attempt against the cage. And I think once she's on the hips or got the body lock, Caitlin will get sent to the canvas where Calvillo will have her way. 48% takedown defense out of Chookagian is no good. And if we are really considering the size that much, just have to look at Calvillo's fight against Botelho, a really similar framed girl, standing 5'8" with 67-inch reach. That's 1 inch in height, 1 inch in reach less than Chookagian. And Calvillo just, tore her apart, busted her up to the legs and the body, walked her down, took her down twice, and then submitted her all within 1 round. And it's a grueling pace that Cynthia sets. She showed us she can do it for 5 rounds. 3 won't be a problem. Yes, Caitlin is high volume too, but a lot of that work is on the outside. Cynthia's work's on the inside, in the clinch and on the ground. It's a different type of pace. So that speaks to my prediction. I'll be taking Cynthia Calvillo, and I'm going to play the decision at 2.25 times. The knockout seriously interests me at 30.82 times. Chookagian was finished to body strikes in her last fight against Andrade, and Calvillo goes to that well a lot. But I'll play it safe with a decision. If the KO hits, I'll be ropeable. But you're right. The one thing that worries me in this fight is Calvillo coming out a little underdone. She had a poor first round against Jessica Eye in her last fight. And if that happens here, there's much less time to turn the tide in only a 3-rounder. But the fact that she did turn it around like that and win every round after that first last time out shows me a level of IQ, shows me a level of mental grit that I love. So I'm all in on Cynthia. As we look ahead to the next fight, Mauricio Hua versus Paul Craig. Shogun there is 2.66 times on verdict, also represented at the bookies at $2.51. Paul Craig 1.6 times on verdict and $1.51. For those of you that don't know, it's actually the second meeting between these two. They fought in 2019, just over a year ago now, to a draw. Both have had one fight since that they both won. The most interesting thing is that in their first meeting, Shogun was a massive favourite. He closed at about $1.25. Craig was $3.75. Worth noting that Craig was a replacement, had about 2 weeks notice in that, so kind of representative of perhaps some of the odds there. But now Craig is a moderate favourite, about 2.5 to 1, and I really don't feel like that's warranted. Like I said, only one fight each since that meeting, so it's not like we have an abundance of data to suggest Craig's improved drastically or their career trajectories have changed that much in just 1 year. I will say that Paul Craig is coming along with his striking a long way. Predominantly a BJJ guy. That was where his skill gap was largest kind of through his first few UFC fights. But he's much smoother on the feet now and definitely has a deeper bag of tricks than he once did. I actually like his kicking game. He goes to the body with it a lot. Did that in their first fight. And he also throws the wheel kick, spinning attacks, which shows you kind of a confidence level in his own ability in a way as he is progressing. However, as to be expected with someone who's relatively new to striking, his footwork's not that great. He's only got a front foot game. He's dangerous in the middle and when he's pressuring his opponent. But from what I've seen, he just doesn't have ability off the back foot. And we saw that in their first fight. Craig had a massive first round. One judge scored at 10-8, which what's led it to the draw, essentially. When he had Shogun hurt, was pressuring him backwards and up against the cage, After that first round, Shogun was the one to make the adjustments. And he took the middle away from Craig. He won the next 2 rounds comfortably. I think there was probably only 3 or 4 more exchanges in the center of octagon for the rest of the fight. The other thing I wanted to mention about Craig is his willingness to be taken down. He's so comfortable on the deck that he gives up takedowns far too easily, and then he's far too content to remain on the ground. He has one of the more dangerous guards in the UFC, duly noted, and has notched plenty of submission wins from his back, but it's just not where you want to be against a guy like Shogun. Such a heavy top game, and although he doesn't use his jiu-jitsu chops offensively at all, really, he is super wise defensively. He does all the right things on the mat. And, he had over 6 minutes of ground control time in Craig's guard through the first fight without Paul even getting close to finding a submission. So to my prediction, I think this fight does play out very similarly to the first with a few minor adjustments for Craig. I feel like he'll be less willing to spend rounds on his back as he did in the first encounter. I think he'll still play a bit, try and snatch guillotines off takedowns or triangles from his back. That is his game. But overall, work that butterfly guard to try and separate and stand. However, I still think Shogun's top control will be good enough to keep him down for decent portions of this fight. In terms of adjustments for Shogun, I think he'll look to be the first to strike and push Craig back with pressure from the start. Like I mentioned, their first encounter was a completely different affair when he began to do that. And I also think he works the leg kicks more. He only put 5 on Craig last year, but then in his more recent performance, a decision win against Nogueira, he hit him with 16. It's one of his best attacks and just a great way to score points whilst putting visible damage on your opponent. All in all, I think Shogun won their first fight. The draw was a bad call because even if the first round went 10-8 to Paul Craig, one judge had it 29-28 Craig. I don't know how they scored the second or the third for him. And I love being able to play Shogun in the rematch as a moderate underdog. Craig really is a kill or be killed guy, and the draw was his first pro fight to go the distance, but I just don't know if we see Shogun find a finish. I would love to see a brutal ground and pound stoppage, but I'm going to play the numbers here and take Shogun via a decision at 4.41 times. And I like that play. Alright, moving into the second half of the card now. Mike Perry versus Tim Means. Mike Perry 1.34 times on verdict and $1.68 at the bookies. Tim Means, big underdog on verdict, 3.92 times and $2.15 at the bookies. I expect this to be pretty fun viewing for fight fans. And kind of a tough one to break down, just given the state of both of these guys' careers currently, plus their recent performances. Mike Perry is the perfect picture of unpredictability. Do I like him opting against cornerman, having his girlfriend in there and just running his own game plan? I don't know. Kind of, like he said, when he's in there getting punched in the face, he doesn't want someone on the outside barking instructions at him, which I get, but it would seem that Mike just loves getting punched in the face. He carries power for sure. His conditioning did look decent last time out, and the grappling mix-up was nice to see, but he isn't a technical guy, and Tim Means is, and I feel like when you're going up against a technician, someone in your corner with a different perspective can offer you insight, ways to get around that, and if he goes in there without that this time around, he's going to be lacking. This long into Tim Means' career, this fight being his 23rd with the company, he's looked no better than in his last performance. The footwork and elusiveness of Tim's always been there. 61% striking defense is really, really high. But he's always just seemed to walk into a sub or lose close splits. He's been an odd guy to predict over the years. But in his last fight against Laureano Staropoli, he looked different in one main way that I think will come into play a lot in this one. And it was the fact that he didn't hang around in the pocket too long. That's the danger zone against Mike Perry. Means he's going to have an advantage at kickboxing range. He has the better kicking game, will be much longer than Perry, and utilises the jab, straight attacks to good effect. Perry loves wild hook shots across his body, but those shots are effectively going to make him even shorter in this matchup. If Tim can keep disciplined, not get caught up in a firefight, he definitely has all the skills he needs to win this one, because when distance is close, he actually has a better clinch game, in my opinion, as well. Perry also loves the close proximity exchanges against the cage, work the elbows, the dirty boxing, but Tim's Muay Thai is superior from my advantage point. Plus his length is going to spell trouble for knees upstairs and to the body. Tim doesn't discriminate. He loves working the midsection and has done his whole career. There is the chance to be seeing some grappling here as well. Both guys showed off takedowns in their last fight, but Tim really fixed his takedown defense after getting taken down relentlessly by Alex Oliveira in their 2017 fight. And if you look at the numbers, he's only been taken down once since in 8 fights. So I think Perry's going to really struggle to get this to the mat. And the main trouble with Means on the ground is his submission defense, which Mike Perry doesn't offer a threat in at all. Not a single submission attempt through 13 UFC fights. So to my prediction, as I've set it up, I'm going to be siding with another underdog in Tim Means here. I really loved what I saw in his last fight, and I think the same or similar version of himself comfortably wins this fight. Mike Perry is a tough guy to back. Even Mickey Gall had some moments against him in his last fight on the feet, who is a quarter of the striker Tim Means is. And I needn't say more about the less than ideal headspace he's been in for the last few years. As for tipping a method of victory, the decision is the most likely outcome. Perry's only been finished by strikes to Jeff Neal, an absolute powerhouse, and I can't really see Tim chasing a submission. But if I'm taking Tim as this big of a dog already, I'm really going to chase the value, and I'll take a second round knockout at 17.86 times. Perry's durable, for sure, has no quit, but I feel like he might blow the tank trying to get inside of Tim in the first and be wearing some damage from that jab going into the second. Expect Tim's bodywork to pay dividends and some of that Muay Thai game included, and I think we see Mike hit the canvas. Tim's capable, 19 of 30 pro wins by knockout. I'll take these odds with that resume any day. Happy with that play, for sure. Moving along to the co-main event, flyweight championship in the female division, Valentina Shevchenko versus Jennifer Maia. Shevchenko's 1.07 times on verdict, a massive favourite, and $1.06 at the bookies, represented between the two there. Jennifer Maia's 15.00 times on verdict and $8.50 at the bookies. Do I need to talk about this fight? I've always kind of said that if an underdog in an MMA fight is kind of in that $7 to $8 plus category, they're simply, they're just worth the play purely off the back of the unpredictability of this sport. But how the fuck can I justify that here? Shevchenko is one of the more dominant champions in the UFC, and in this matchup she's better absolutely everywhere. Better speed, versatility of attacks, far more powerful, better defensively, better takedowns, better jiu-jitsu, way better Muay Thai. It's just a gross mismatch. The only way Valentina loses this is if she has a complete brain fade, looks unmotivated, and looks past it. But she is one of the more headstrong fighters in the game, always looks well prepared for whatever opponent she's facing. You know, she respects their skill sets and comes out to dominate them, even sometimes taking it upon herself to dominate them in their supposed best field. And what is Maya's best field? You know, probably her jiu-jitsu, albeit she has poor takedown ability to get it to the ground. So therefore, I think Valentina's going to take her down, smother her with top pressure and strikes before working up into a really dominant position, maybe a crucifix, something similar, and sub Jennifer out. I'm not going to talk further on this one. You know, Valentina's got 6 pro wins via KO, 6 pro wins via decision, and 7 wins via submission. But the sub is actually the highest paying outcome on verdict, so I think that's a great play. So yeah, second round submission at 12.86 times in favour of Shevchenko is the call. And a bit of history for the round choice. 4 of Valentina's submission victories have been in the second round, and Maya's lone submission loss was also in the second frame. So there we go. Don't have to talk about that any longer. Main event now. Flipping it over to the males. Also the flyweight championship. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Alex Perez. Figueiredo also a massive favourite on verdict, 1.11 times and $1.32 at the bookies. Alex Perez 9.9 times and $3.30 at the bookies. So albeit similar verdict odds to our flyweight championship co-main, this fight is more closely matched. Alex Perez extremely game, has very, very good statistics. His only loss in the UFC came to Benavidez 2 years ago, which is no knock on him at all, even though it was a knockout loss. I rate Joe B, especially a couple of years ago. Alex Perez extremely entertaining to watch. He's a high volume guy, a high pressure guy, really fast and powerful with his strikes as well. He loves the leg kicks. He uses it a lot, which is a strike that Figueiredo has been susceptible to in the past. And not susceptible to the extent of losing fights because of it, but guys managing to land it. Pantoja landed 11, Tim Elliott 16, Benavidez landed 10 leg kicks in their first fight. The thing is, Figueiredo just doesn't have many weaknesses or holes in his game. His only career loss was to Jussier Formiga. And what does Formiga do well? He grapples. He's a really good grappler, of course. But the thing about Formiga's game that worked on Deiveson so well was the ability to slow the fight down, make it a low volume affair, and then make Deiveson desperate with his striking as the fight dragged on and time was running out. Formiga is an extremely uneventful fighter. No knock him in at all. It's a very sustainable way to fight, especially as he is aging. But Perez is not that at all. Perez, he'll walk forward, he'll look to strike with Deiveson, engage in that firefight, and I don't recommend anyone doing that at 125 pounds, And when I'm looking at styles and I'm looking at these two styles, until I see someone able to hurt Figueiredo in a fight like this, like that, there is no way I'm going to side against him. The fact of the matter is I don't think we've ever seen anyone hit as hard as Figgy at flyweight. He's notched knockdowns in 6 of his 9 UFC fights. If you were going to play in the pocket with this man, like I expect Perez to do at times, I cannot entertain the idea of selecting you. Look, Perez can grapple too, and he would be very wise to utilise his ability there in this fight. 50% takedown accuracy, averaging 3 a fight, extremely good numbers. But even on the canvas, who possesses the greater danger? Figueiredo is far more active and aggressive with his submission attempts, averaging 2.9 attempts per fight compared to 1.4 from Perez, which is made even more impressive by the fact that Perez spends more time in top control. I see this fight ending in a finish in favour of Deiveson, and I expect it to be early. It's not that I think Perez isn't durable, it's just that Deiveson is that dangerously good everywhere. Although a clean knockout's probably on, 1.51 times is disgustingly short, and if you actually take a deeper look, Perez has been subbed 3 times in his career and only knocked out once. So I'm going to ride a first round submission for Figueiredo at 6.35 times. Either via vicious club and sub like we saw against Benavidez in his last fight, which was one of the most violent finishes ever, or Deiveson managing to cinch up a sub on Perez shooting a takedown while he's hurt and desperate. That's what I see. And I was looking back through the resumes, and 4 of Figueiredo's 7 submission victories have been guillotines, and 2 of Perez's 3 submission losses have also been guillotines. So Give me style points on that if it eventuates to be a guillotine submission victory in favour of Figueroa. And also just quickly some reasoning on the first round. All 7 of Figueroa's submissions have been in the first round, whilst all 3 of Perez's submission losses have also been in the first. So some super convincing history there to back that pick. Alright, to the betting aspect of this event, like I alluded to earlier on in my introduction, this is my biggest betting outlay, or my biggest betting card thus far. With the multi per half annum, we're actually going for big odds, more than the 20 to 1. We're sitting in 30s. So let me label it out for you. We're taking Brandon Royval money line. We're taking Shogun via KO or points. We're taking Tim Means by KO or points. And then both the co-main and main event to not go the distance at $35.23 to 1. You guys have heard all my reasoning for those fights. I needn't say more. But I've also got an extra multi. So yeah, 2 multis this week. The extra one just on the co-main and main. I am worried that multi prior is not going to make it to the co-main and main. The 3 early legs, Royval, Rua, and Means, are kind of risky legs. They're all underdogs. So I wanted to have some skin for the championship fights, and I thought you guys would appreciate that as well. I'm taking Shevchenko and Figueiredo via submission. Double that up at $41.25 to 1. I love that play. You guys have just heard me talk about it for more than long enough. But I think both of those outcomes are a good chance of eventuating. And I'll be having a unit on that. To the single plays, we've got 5 of them. And they're all pretty much regurgitated out of the multis anyway. So I won't hang around for ages on them. But we're taking Brandon Royval money line at $2.59. We're taking Means via KO or points at $2.50. Shogun via KO or points at $2.88. And then Shevchenko by sub at $7.50. And Figueroa by sub at $5.50. Yeah, that's it. Big event. If you want to check my socials, they're all down in the description. My Instagram, my Twitter, my Verdict account, so you can see how I'm scoring fights. I'm praying that we don't lose any fights between now and fight night. Because honestly, the main card is pretty strong, and yeah. But if that does eventuate, if that is the case, catch me on Verdict so you can see my new picks for whatever fight gets rescheduled to the main card, or just to see how I'm scoring. I'll probably have a video for next week. We've got Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis, a very, very interesting main event with title implications as well. Both of those guys up the top of the heavyweight division. Other than that, thanks for hanging around for so long. Hopefully I didn't waffle too much, and catch up.